In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to do the crocheted provisional cast on. This is my favorite method to do the provisional cast on. What you need to start this is you need your working needles, you need a crochet hook in a similar size, and then your working yarn, and then you need scrap yarn that is a similar size to your working yarn. I suggest using a non-wool or a slippery piece of scrap yarn. That way, when you go to unzip your provisional cast on, it does not get snagged on your work. So to get started, you are going to make a slip knot like so. Then you will go ahead and put that loop on your crochet hook and tighten it up. Then you will take your working yarn, or your working needles, I'm sorry, and you're going to place that on top of your yarn so that the working yarn is coming out from behind your knitting needle. And what you're going to do is you're going to crochet over top of your knitting needle. So you're going to go ahead and wrap that around, grab it, and pull it through the loop that's on your hook. Then you have one cast on stitch. You're going to move your yarn back behind the knitting needle and do the same thing. Wrap it around the hook, pull it through the loop. Move it back to the back, wrap it around, pull it through the loop. You will do this for the amount of cast on stitches that your pattern calls for. I like to add one extra cast on stitch to the end because what's going to happen is when you unzip it and you start knitting the opposite direction, you are going to be a half a stitch short. So by adding that extra cast on stitch, you will have the correct number of stitches that you will need when you go unzip it and start working in the opposite direction. Okay, so I have 11 stitches here. I am going to cast on about 40, so 41, so that I can make it around, and I will show you how to join in the round. So you can go ahead and meet me back at the end. Okay, so I have 40 stitches cast on. I'm going to go ahead and cast on that one extra. And then instead of bringing my yarn back behind the knitting needle again, I'm going to keep it up front, and I'm just going to chain a couple of stitches to secure that end. So you just wrap it around the crochet hook and pull it through 1, 2, 3, and then pull up just a little loop. Don't pull it all the way through, and go ahead and cut your scrap yarn. So we're not going to join in the round just yet. We are going to take our working yarn and we are going to go ahead and pick up our live stitches. So to do that, you're just going to knit as normal, but just with your working yarn instead of that scrap yarn. So you will go ahead and pick up every stitch all the way down. And at this point, you will still have that one extra stitch. And I'll show you how we are going to decrease that out so that we have the correct number of stitches in order to start the pattern. So go ahead and pick up your stitches and meet me back at the end. Okay. So if you were working flat with the provisional cast on, you would go ahead and work your wrong side row, which would most likely be the first row that your pattern is written out for. And then when you get to these last 2 stitches, you would, let's just say you are called to purl that row, you would purl those 2 together to decrease that stitch back down to the number you need to continue working that direction. Now that we're going to work in the round, those first 2 stitches are going to be the stitches that get decreased together. So making sure that your stitches aren't twisted around, go ahead and place your beginning of the round marker and go ahead and knit those 2 stitches together. Now if your pattern, like my Heart of Winter Cowl, calls for a purl stitch at that first stitch, go ahead and purl them together. And you kind of want to do that first one a little snug just because you're not swapping any 2 stitches there. You're just going to start knitting. And then you just follow in pattern whatever row 1 for your pattern is written out for. I'm going to work a few rounds and then I will come back and show you how to unzip the provisional cast on. Okay, so I've worked a few rounds of the Heart of Winter Cowl. So this is, if you're working that pattern, this is what your pattern should look like after 1 repeat. But I just stopped there so I can show you how to unzip the provisional cast on. So that end that you left that loop, you are going to go ahead and just pull that tail, and then as you get up to your work, you will see, so there's 2 stitches. Now, what you can do is, if you want, you can put them on your needle as you unzip them, or you can do them all. It depends on what you're more comfortable with. Just make sure you're not going to twist your stitches. So you're going to come up from behind your stitches and go ahead and put them on your needle like so. I'm going to keep that out of the way for right now so that you can see as I unzip these stitches, they are just right there. So like I said, if you want, you can unzip the whole thing, or you can go ahead and place them on as you unzip them. Alternatively, if you wanted to, instead of just pulling to unzip and letting the stitch hang there, if you wanted, you can put that stitch on your needle and then unzip it as well, if that makes you feel more comfortable with the process. So when you look underneath the chain, you'll see the live stitch. And then you just go ahead and grab that stitch before you unzip it. And then that's another great way to ensure that you're not going to drop any of your stitches as you are unzipping the provisional cast on. This way is a little bit slower, just as you need to make sure you get the yarn out of the way, but definitely probably the most safe option, especially if this is a new technique for you. And then I have one more right there. That's the last one. And then, oh, that's my waist yarn on the other side. I was like, wait a minute. Okay, so then now your stitches, your live stitches are all back on your working needles. and you can pick up your working yarn. Mine is still attached. You would pick up your working yarn and then start working the opposite direction. All right, thank you so much.